The first thing I did was check if I was dreaming. Because who says that? Who stands in the middle of a kitchen at 8:47 a.m. holding a half-burnt piece of toast and casually tells their husband, "I can't hug you anymore. Not won't. Not don't want to. But can't." She didn't even look up. She just stirred her coffee, added her oat milk, and walked out of the room like she had just reminded me to take the trash out. It was Tuesday. Trash day. But the thing that needed to be taken out wasn't in the bin. I've never really told anyone this story. Not the real version. People think heartbreak happens in some dramatic fashion, loud fights, suitcases flying down staircases, one of you screaming, the other crying. But my heartbreak sounded more like the dishwasher humming. It looked like a woman gently folding socks and saying, "It's not you. It's just, something's changed." That was her version. Mine was simpler. She stopped loving me and forgot to tell me. Over the next few days, I tested her statement like a scientist. I stood too close in the hallway. Nothing. I left a handwritten note on her pillow that said, "Remember when we used to just hold each other for no reason?" No reply. I even pretended to trip in front of her. That one's embarrassing. She winced, not out of concern, but like I had disturbed her train of thought. But the worst part? She still talked to me. Asked if I paid the internet bill. Reminded me about the pest control appointment. Suggested we needed new sponges. We were still a team if that team was in charge of operating a gas station. No more touch. No more shared blankets. No more passing kisses or lazy back rubs while watching TV. Just silence and lists. And I obeyed. Because I'm that guy. The guy who stays too long. The guy who thinks, maybe if I just hold on tighter, she'll remember. But holding on when someone's already halfway out the door is like trying to glue fog back together. Then came the morning I found the list. It wasn't hers. It wasn't mine. It was typed, printed, folded neatly and tucked inside the inside flap of the laundry room cabinet. It was titled, "What I Want from My Next Relationship." And I kid you not, it had bullet points. She wanted someone spontaneous. Someone assertive. Someone who didn't need constant validation. Someone who could surprise her. Someone who made her feel alive. And right there, in black ink on white paper, was the part that made my knees give out. No more small, sad men. That was me. That was exactly me. I'm a small, sad man who asks if you're okay 3 times when you sigh. I'm a guy who brings home soup when you say your throat's itchy. I'm a guy who lets you have the better blanket. And she didn't want that anymore. She wanted someone else. The weirdest part? It didn't feel like betrayal. It felt like reading your own obituary while still breathing. She never mentioned the list. She never admitted it was hers. But the handwriting on the sticky note that held it closed said, "Try again with version 2. So someone had seen version 1. And it wasn't me. I've never asked her about it. I just started sleeping on the couch and left the list exactly where I found it. And when she walked past me 2 days later, I didn't flinch. Because suddenly I didn't want a hug either. I wanted a reason. Next part gets darker. I wish I could say this was the lowest point. But the real shock came later when I found out who she had shown version 1 to. I should have walked away the day I read that list. But instead, I began doing something even worse. I started measuring myself against it. Like a fool, I became her self-improvement project without her ever asking. Or caring. I downloaded an app to start being more spontaneous. It sent me daily tips like take a different route home or buy something without thinking. So I came home one night with a dozen mini succulents and said they reminded me of you. Resilient and low maintenance. She blinked. Said that's weirdly clinical. Then she went back to her emails. I booked a weekend at a nearby cabin without telling her. I thought she'd be impressed. She said she had too much to do. Later, I found the receipt for a wine bar reservation in her car booked the same weekend. For 2. I didn't ask who it was for. I didn't need to. I started to feel like I was living in someone else's house, someone who looked like me but had lost every part of himself along the way. It was on a Wednesday just before sunset when I finally caught a real glimpse into her other life. She had left her laptop open on the dining table, unusual since she guarded it like it contained nuclear launch codes. I wasn't snooping. I was genuinely going to move it off a spill. But as I reached for it, the screen flicked on. A draft email was open. No greeting, just 2 words at the top. Version 3. What followed was a raw, brutal character dissection of me. Bullet points again. Not the kind from the old grocery lists or vacation plans we used to scribble together. These were colder. Sharper. He apologizes too much. He asks before touching me every single time. Exhausting. He folds my clothes like a maid. I never asked him to. It's like hugging a damp sponge. He just soaks up my moods. I need a man, not a question mark. It went on for a full page. I stood there frozen, reading line after line of the way she saw me. Not just unloved, unseen. I wasn't a husband anymore. I was a placeholder until something better showed up. And then I saw the email address. travisw.writer@*. Travis. A name she'd mentioned exactly once. He was in her writing group. The one she joined just for fun. The one that met in cafes, sometimes libraries. The one she never wanted me to come to because you'd be bored to death with all our metaphors. Travis was no metaphor. He was a man helping my wife draft escape plans. I didn't confront her. Not right away. I closed the laptop. Left the house. Walked for miles with no destination. I passed 4 open convenience stores before I realized I was holding my debit card in my hand. I ended up buying 2 bottles of sparkling water and a magazine I didn't read. Stood in a parking lot for 20 minutes wondering what kind of man reads his own obituary while the body's still breathing. When I came home, she was in the bath. She smiled. Said, "You were gone a while. Everything okay?" I smiled back. Said, "Yeah. Just needed some air." That's who I was. The man who absorbs. The sponge. But something shifted that night. I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling and made a decision. If she wanted someone else, someone bolder, less apologetic, I wouldn't give her that. I'd give her nothing. Not silence. Not rage. Not revenge. Just removal. The next morning I began to vanish. Not in the physical sense, but in the kind that she would only notice when it was too late. I stopped asking questions. Stopped checking in. Stopped making space for her moods. I became quietly unavailable. And she noticed. She touched my shoulder during dinner. I didn't lean in. She said, "Hey, are we okay?" I smiled without teeth and said, "Sure." It scared her. I could see it. For the first time in a year, she started watching me. But I wasn't doing it for power. I was doing it because I realized the only way to survive someone erasing you is to erase yourself first from their expectations, their control, their frame. But I wasn't ready for what happened next. Because the moment I let go, she finally reached back. And it led to a confession that turned everything inside out. Something strange started happening the week I stopped reacting. It was like I'd gone invisible, and yet suddenly she started noticing things. Hollis asked if I wanted to go out for dinner. I said no, I already ate. I hadn't. I was starving. She stared at me confused. That used to be her line. Then 2 days later, she poked her head into my home office, a space she hadn't visited in months, and asked if I wanted to go for a drive or something. A drive. With her. I told her I was in the middle of something. I wasn't. I had a blank Word doc open and a browser tab half-loaded with a recipe for banana bread I never made. The irony? The colder I became, the warmer she tried to act. Like she could smell that the walls were caving in and suddenly remembered I lived there too. I started timing how long it took her to notice I wasn't in the room. One morning, I stood in the backyard for 47 minutes. Just stood there, arms folded, jacket on, watching the neighbor's dog dig a hole. She didn't notice until I came back in. Said, "You've been out there a while." Then, "Is everything all right?" I told her I liked the silence out there. She just nodded. But her eyes didn't move away from me. And then one night, I heard her on the phone. I hadn't heard her talk on the phone in weeks. She usually texted or typed in her writing chat, as she called it. But this was a voice call. Whispery. Tight. She didn't realize I was standing in the hallway outside the bedroom. She said, "He's acting weird." Not angry. Just nothing. Like a shadow version of himself. Pause. Then, "No, I haven't said anything about us yet. I don't even know if I want it anymore." Another pause. "No, he hasn't said a word. But I feel like he knows." I did know. I knew about her versions. I knew about Travis. I knew I wasn't even competing anymore, just biding time in my own skin until she built up the courage to press detonate. But what she said next made my throat go dry. What if I already made a mistake? That line echoed through me like a song you hate but can't stop humming. Because it wasn't said with guilt. It wasn't said with pain. It was said with confusion. Like someone who dropped their phone and realized their new one doesn't feel the same in their hand. She wasn't sorry. She was unsure. That to me was worse than a full confession. I didn't sleep that night. I lay on the couch staring at the ceiling fan, listening to it click every 7 seconds, wondering how a marriage can rot so slowly that the stench only becomes noticeable when one of you walks away. By morning, I had decided something. If she wasn't going to choose, I would. And I didn't mean choosing between staying and leaving. I meant choosing the truth. That afternoon, while she was out walking to clear her head, which I suspected meant going to meet him, I finally did something I'd avoided for weeks. I opened her desk drawer. I wasn't proud of it. My hand shook the whole time. But when I slid it open, what I found wasn't dramatic. There were no love letters. No hotel receipts. There was a small black notebook with gold corners, the kind she used to write her fiction in. I flipped it open. Page 1 was blank. Page 2 too. Then I reached a page marked with a post-it. It was dated 2 months ago. And what I read shattered me more than any message or hug rejection ever could. He asked me if I'm still in love with him. I said yes because it was easier than watching him break in front of me. But the truth is, I don't think I ever loved him the way he loves me. He's sweet, and broken, and careful. I feel like a thief every time I kiss his forehead. I couldn't read more. I closed the book. Not because I was angry, but because I finally realized I was the side character in someone else's life story. She hadn't been cheating with Travis. She had been escaping me emotionally, mentally, and that notebook was the confession. All those weeks I was trying to save us, she had already left. All those nights I hugged her while she stared at the wall, she was fantasizing about someone who wasn't terrified to take up space. It didn't matter if Travis existed. He was just a symbol. The real affair had been between her and the version of herself she kept hiding from me. That night, when she came back, I was at the stove making grilled cheese, one of the few things I still had appetite for. She looked at me like she wanted to speak. I beat her to it. I read the notebook. Silence. Then, which one? That one sentence told me everything. There was more than one. The black one. Gold corners. Her eyes closed like she was bracing for a gust of wind that never came. Then she whispered, "Elwood, I never meant for you to. I know," I cut in. "You never meant for me to see it. Just like you never meant for me to disappear. But you did both anyway." She cried. For the first time in months. I didn't comfort her. I just finished my sandwich and left the room. I slept in the car that night. Not because she kicked me out, but because the house felt like a haunted museum filled with memories that never truly belonged to both of us. And in the morning, something even more disturbing happened. She wasn't in the house, but Travis was. The front door wasn't locked. That's the first thing I remember noticing. It was slightly ajar, not wide open, not dramatic, just carelessly unlatched, as if someone thought they had more right to enter than I had to close it. It was early. I had only just returned from a restless night sleeping in the car parked 2 blocks down. I didn't want her to know I hadn't gone far. I wanted space. I wanted clarity. I wanted to feel like I had some form of control even if I was sitting in the dark with a jacket draped over my face to block the streetlight. But now I stood at the threshold of my own home, staring into a space that used to feel familiar and realizing something was wrong. I heard clinking. 2 ceramic mugs on the counter. 1 kettle boiling. Someone humming a low tune, off-key, like they'd done this exact thing 100 times before. Then I turned the corner into the kitchen. He was there, leaning casually against the island, stirring sugar into a mug that said, "Don't talk before coffee." That used to be my mug. He looked up and paused when he saw me. Not shocked. Just paused. Like he wasn't sure whether to say good morning or oops. Travis. I didn't recognize him from any photo. Hollis had never shown me one and I'd never searched. But I knew instantly this was him. How? Because no stranger walks into a married couple's house and makes coffee barefoot at 6:30 a.m. "Hey," he said, like we were roommates catching each other at a weird hour. "Didn't know you were home." I stared. Words didn't form fast enough. There was this strange part of me, the part that was raised to be polite even in crisis, that almost said, "You want milk with that?" Instead, I said, "Where's she?" He lifted his mug and nodded toward the back room. "Shower." Just that. Shower. Not Hollis is in the shower. Not sorry for being here. Not even a flicker of guilt. He sipped the coffee. My coffee. In my house. On a Thursday morning. I could hear the water running in the master bathroom. I could almost picture her towel on the hook, steam on the mirror, the exact way she twisted her hair into a loose bun while humming to herself. She always hummed when she thought she was alone. Now she was humming for him. "I'm going to ask you something," I finally said. "And I want you to tell me the truth." Travis put the mug down slowly. He didn't look nervous, just cautious, like a guy who's been through confrontations before and already picked his words. "Are you sleeping with my wife?" The pause was only 2 seconds, but it felt longer. Then, "Yes." Just that. Not even a blink. "And you're okay with doing that in the house I pay for?" I asked. My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. I felt like an earthquake inside, but my mouth spoke in a whisper. He shrugged. "She said you were leaving. That you moved out." She said that yesterday. You're here today. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, man, he said, placing the mug down. This isn't messy for me. It's something she needs. We didn't plan for it to happen this way. Didn't plan for it? I scoffed. You think bringing your toothbrush to someone's house at dawn is spontaneous? His eyes didn't change. He was too calm. Too comfortable. It hit me then, this wasn't his first time here. This wasn't a one-off visit. He'd been here before. Likely walked past the photos on the wall. Sat on our couch. Used our soap. Maybe even slept in our bed. I turned and walked to the bedroom. I wasn't going to fight. I wasn't going to yell. I just wanted confirmation. The bed was made almost too perfectly. The way Hollis made it when guests were expected. But on her nightstand, tucked under her journal, was a brown leather wallet. Not mine. Not hers. His. I opened it. Inside was a folded receipt. Date, 2 weeks ago. Hotel, the Briarstone. 2 nights. 1 king bed. I stood there in silence, wallet open in my hand, hearing the water still running. And then she called out, not knowing I was there. Elle? You back already? Already. Like I was on a scheduled exile. Like I was the interruption. I walked out of the room and back to the kitchen. Travis was still there. Sitting now. On my chair. Eating a piece of toast I hadn't bought. I didn't speak. I just dropped the wallet on the counter and stared at him. Then I said quietly, finish your toast. Then leave. He looked at me for a long time like he wanted to say something, maybe even apologize. But he didn't. He just nodded. And that's when it happened. Hollis appeared in the hallway, towel in her hair, wearing my old hoodie like it was hers. She froze when she saw us both. What's going on? She asked. I didn't answer. Neither did Travis. The silence was louder than any fight we could have had. I picked up my keys, walked to the front door, and paused. I said one thing before I left. You didn't lose me, Hollis. You just gave me away. And I stepped outside into the cold, not knowing where I was going, only that it had to be anywhere else. But what happened later that day changed everything. Because I thought I was the one being betrayed. Turns out I wasn't the only one she'd lied to. Wait until you hear what Travis didn't know. After I left the house that morning, I didn't go far. I drove aimlessly for hours with no direction. Highways I'd driven dozens of times suddenly felt unfamiliar. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even think, really. I just watched the signs and scenery blur together while my hands gripped the wheel with the same shaky determination that had kept my marriage alive long past its expiration date. It wasn't until I stopped at an empty park outside a gas station that the weight of it all started pressing down. I sat on a cold bench, hands in my lap, and tried to make sense of the morning. Hollis hadn't just let another man into our home, she'd turned it into his. His seat. His coffee. His version of her. She wasn't mine anymore, maybe never was, and now that truth was seeping into my bones like the chill in the wind. And yet, something didn't sit right. Travis had acted too calm. Too neutral. I'd expected arrogance. Maybe guilt. Or even some kind of smug ownership like he had won. But instead, he looked confused. Like he didn't fully understand the scene he was part of. And when Hollis walked in, the panic on her face wasn't the panic of a woman who'd been caught, it was the panic of a woman who was suddenly afraid both of us had figured something out. So I did something I hadn't done yet. I messaged Travis. I found his email through the writing group's public site, a shared bio page with a headshot that confirmed it was definitely him. I sent one line. Meet me. Just you. I think we've both been lied to. I didn't expect a reply. But 2 hours later he did. One word, where? We met at a diner on Route 7. Neutral ground. Low traffic. I got there early and sat in the corner booth, heart pounding like I was walking into a duel. Travis arrived 5 minutes late. He looked more tired than he did earlier, like he hadn't spoken to her yet, or maybe had and things didn't go as expected. He sat across from me. We didn't order. She told me you'd left, he said first. That the house was empty. I nodded. She told me you were someone from her group. That you'd never even met outside of classes. He stared at the table. That's not true. We've seen each other outside for a few weeks. Just a few. I asked. I wasn't trying to trap him, I genuinely wanted to know. He hesitated, then said, all right. Longer. I think. She said it started after a big fight you had. That she stayed with her sister for a while and made a clean break. My stomach flipped. She doesn't have a sister. He blinked. What? She's an only child. Her parents passed away years ago. No siblings. No cousins close enough to be mistaken for family. The color drained from his face. I leaned in. You weren't the first, were you? He shook his head slowly, like the realization was building in real time. I don't think I was even the second. There was a long silence. Then Travis said something that truly floored me. She told me you cheated on her. That you used to make her feel small. That she'd tried for years to fix it, but you kept shutting her out. That's why she stayed late at the group. She said it was the only place she felt seen. I could barely speak. I wrote her poetry. I folded her laundry. I kissed her forehead every morning, even when she didn't kiss me back. Travis nodded, quietly furious. She told me you'd left her emotionally. That you were cruel. I was never cruel. I was quiet. And I thought I was helping her escape something awful, he said bitterly. Instead, I was helping her create something worse. We sat there for another half hour, piecing together the timeline. There were overlaps. Inconsistencies. Moments where her lies to me overlapped with her lies to him, moments where she must have rushed home from my dinner to meet him for drinks. Moments where she fabricated entire days and slipped between realities without missing a beat. I asked him one final question. Did she ever mention a list? A version of you. He looked startled. Yes. She called it a creative exercise, version 4. She said it helped her process who she wanted to be with. There it was again. The versions. But I knew now they weren't about creativity. They were scripts. She wasn't just cheating physically, she was creating alternate relationships with different men, like she was test-running new personalities to see which one made her feel something. And we were all just prototypes. I paid the bill. Travis looked like he was going to be sick. As we walked to the lot, he stopped me and said, I thought I was rescuing her. But maybe she just needed someone to rehearse with. I didn't have an answer. When I got home, the door was locked this time. She was inside waiting. I talked to him, I said, before she could speak. And you know what the saddest part is? She stayed silent. You were never looking for love. You were looking for a mirror, one that showed you someone exciting, important, adored. And when it stopped reflecting back what you wanted, you just moved on to another angle. She cried. Of course she did. But it was too late. Not because I hated her, but because I couldn't carry the weight of someone else's emptiness anymore. That night, I slept in a motel. And the next morning, I filed the paperwork. But she didn't sign. What happened next was a war I never expected. And it started with a letter left on my windshield. The motel room smelled like bleach and leftover despair. The kind of place where the curtains never fully close and the buzzing from the old wall unit feels like a lullaby for the broken. But it was mine. At least for a few days. I hadn't told anyone where I was, not even my coworkers. I figured if I disappeared from her life the same way she disappeared from mine, quietly, slowly, almost invisibly, it would hurt more than any confrontation ever could. I filed the divorce papers that Friday morning. I did it without drama, without yelling, without pleading. Just a cold walk to the courthouse, a scribble of my name, and a silent prayer that this would finally be the line in the sand that neither of us could cross anymore. It felt clean. Final. Adult. But Hollis never wanted clean. When I checked out of the motel on Monday, I found a white envelope tucked under the windshield wiper of my car. No name. Just my license plate scribbled on the back. The handwriting made my stomach drop. Hers. Sharp. Tilted. Always written like she was racing against something. Inside was a single sheet of paper. You don't get to rewrite the story and walk away as the hero. That's how it began. She went on to say that she hadn't signed the divorce papers and wouldn't, at least not yet. She accused me of abandoning her emotionally. Said I humiliated her by involving a stranger in our personal issues, meaning Travis. She called it a betrayal. A manipulation. She even accused me of gaslighting her narrative, whatever that meant. Then came the worst part. You were supposed to fight for me. That's what a real man does. That line stopped my breath. I read it 3 times, each time slower. My brain trying to fold itself around the meaning, the cruelty buried inside it. According to her, me leaving after enduring her lies, emotional detachment, and deception was the ultimate betrayal. And it only got worse from there. That night, I got a call from our mutual friend Darcy. Someone we hadn't spoken to in over a year. She sounded hesitant. I'm not taking sides, she said. But I think you should know Hollis has been telling people things. What kind of things? I asked. Darcy hesitated again. That you were emotionally manipulative. That you controlled her. That you might have made her afraid of you. I almost laughed. Almost. But it came out like a choked cough. I had spent years trying not to be overbearing. Years walking on eggshells, lowering my voice, asking before I even touched her shoulder. I had spent years shrinking myself to make her feel safe, and now she was painting me as some controlling villain? She told people that? I asked. She posted about it in a private group, Darcy admitted. She didn't use your name, but it's obvious. People are already messaging, trying to support her through the trauma. Some guy named Ron even offered her a guest room. My stomach twisted again. Not out of heartbreak. Not out of jealousy. But from fear. This was turning into something else. A performance. A reinvention. A total rewriting of our history. I didn't know who this new version of Hollis was, but she wasn't just lying to me anymore. She was starting to lie about me. And she was good at it. She'd spent years crafting alternate versions of men, of herself, of reality, always rewriting the narrative just enough to stay believable. And now she was taking the same scissors to me. I didn't respond to her note. I didn't engage online. I did the only thing I could. I stayed quiet. Patient. But I started documenting everything. Every message. Every strange phone call. Every moment that felt off. And then I got a call from the landlord. "Hey Elwood," he said. "Got your name on the file still, so I figured I'd check with you first. What's up? Just wanted to confirm if you really agreed to the sublease. Your wife said she's having a friend move in temporarily." I felt my pulse spike. "What friend?" He checked the notes. "Some guy named Travis. She was trying to move him into the house." Into her house? And she hadn't even waited for the divorce to be processed. She hadn't signed. She hadn't let go. She was claiming the space and now trying to push me out of every corner of it, legally and emotionally. I told the landlord I hadn't agreed to anything and asked him to pause whatever request she made. Then I called a lawyer. It was time to stop playing defense. But just when I thought I had seen her worst, she left me something else. A USB drive. Dropped into my mailbox in a blank envelope. No note. Just the device. I almost didn't open it. Part of me believed it was bait. Or a trap. Or worse, something meant to humiliate me again. But I did open it. And what I saw wasn't about me at all. It was about her. And it changed everything I thought I knew about this entire collapse. I stared at the USB drive in my palm for at least 10 minutes before I even plugged it in. I turned it over several times like it might contain a clue, a label, a scratch, a fingerprint. Nothing. Just matte plastic. Small, light, and terrifying. There was no note. No explanation. No warning. And after everything I'd been through, the lies, the manipulation, the emotional gaslighting, and the ambush of Travis in my kitchen, part of me didn't want to know what was on it. Another trap? Another performance? Maybe a video of her justifying her decisions, painting me as a monster in some spoken-word diary filmed on a cheap webcam. But I also knew Hollis. She didn't do things without intention. If she left this for me, she wanted me to see it. Maybe even needed me to. So, against every instinct telling me to throw it away, I slid the drive into my old laptop and waited. The file was simple. One video. No title. Just a timestamp. I clicked play. It opened with the camera tilted, pointed at a ceiling fan. Someone adjusted it and then her face filled the frame. Not the version of Hollis I was used to. Not the cool, emotionally distant woman I'd been living with. This version looked raw. No makeup. Shadows under her eyes. Hair pulled back in a messy bun. She looked older than she had just weeks ago, not in years, but in the kind of emotional wear that etches itself onto people who've been living double lives for too long. And then she started talking. "I don't know if I'll ever send this," she said softly, looking directly into the lens. "But if I do, it means I've either destroyed everything or I've finally accepted that I'm the one who broke it." She paused, sighed, looked down for a long moment. "I've been lying. To Elwood. To Travis. To myself. For longer than I even want to admit. I don't think I know how not to lie anymore." Another pause. Then she laughed dry sad. "You know what's funny? I didn't even mean for it to happen. I didn't wake up one morning and decide to become a terrible person. I just got tired of being seen as fragile. As careful. As someone who always needed to be protected." She looked off to the side. Her voice dropped. "Elwood was never cruel to me. Not once. He was patient to a fault. Too patient, maybe? Every time I pulled away, he stepped back to give me space. Every time I cried, he brought me tissues and tea. Every time I made him feel small, he somehow made himself smaller just to fit inside the cracks I created." I felt my breath catch. She shook her head. And I hated him for it. Not because he deserved it, but because I couldn't understand how someone could love me so much and still not make me feel real. Her voice trembled. I wanted mess. Fire. I wanted someone to slam the door and scream and throw plates just to prove I mattered. Travis, he gave me sparks. Elwood gave me quiet. And I picked sparks. I chose the chaos because it felt like something was happening. She looked into the lens again. Tears brimming. But now I realize the sparks don't last. They burn out. And Travis. Travis doesn't see me either. He sees a version I made up. Version 4. The bold one. the confident woman who takes what she wants. But that's not who I am. And when I tried to show him the real version, the anxious, guilt-ridden, indecisive mess, he pulled away. Her lip trembled. I deserve it. I know I do. She wiped her face, then leaned closer to the camera. If you're watching this, Elle, I'm sorry. Not because I got caught. Not because I lost you. I'm sorry because I turned your love into something ugly. You never asked me to be perfect. You just asked me to be honest. And I couldn't even do that. She paused, then whispered. I think I ruined the only person who ever truly saw me. The screen went black. I sat frozen, staring at the reflection of my own stunned face in the darkened screen. I didn't know how to feel. It wasn't redemption. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't even closure. It was truth. And it cut deeper than any lie ever had. Because she knew. She knew she had broken something sacred. And she did it anyway. The worst part? She had been right about one thing. I had made myself smaller. I had folded and twisted myself for years to keep her comfortable. I had traded my voice for peace, and she'd taken it all like a gift she never asked for. But now, I wasn't small anymore. I was done. The next morning, I called my lawyer. I sent him the video. He advised me to submit it to the court, especially after her attempt to manipulate the lease and fabricate emotional claims. I agreed. It wasn't about revenge. It was about truth finally being on record. And then I got a call from an unknown number. It was Travis. You got the video, didn't you? He asked. I said yes. He was quiet. Then she sent me one too. A different one. What did it say? She said she loved me. That she chose me. That everything she told you was twisted. My chest went cold. You believed her? No, he whispered. But part of me wanted to. Then he added something that sealed it. I think she's trying to rewrite it again. A final draft. One where she's the victim of both of us. He was right. But she'd miscalculated this time. The world she was trying to bend wasn't hers anymore. Because I was no longer part of the story she was editing. I had started writing my own. It's strange how silence changes when you've made peace with it. For months, silence in our home felt like punishment, like a quiet verdict echoing through the walls. But now, living alone in a smaller place, that silence feels different. It feels like space. Like breathing room. Like mine. The court finalized the divorce 2 weeks ago. No drama. No courtroom speeches. She didn't show up in person, just had her lawyer push papers across a desk. I signed them with a steady hand. No shaking. No second thoughts. Just ink and calm. And when I walked out of that office, I didn't cry. I didn't feel broken. I felt clear. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for the next version of her. I wasn't trying to decode her mood or patch myself into whatever part of her life she hadn't shared. I was just Elwood. No husband. No placeholder. No emotional sponge. Just a man with his own name and his own silence and finally his own story. I started doing small things that felt like me again. I rejoined a local chess club. Not because I'm good, I'm not, but because I like the stillness, the quiet strategy of it. I started cooking again. Real food. Messy food. Pasta that boils over and soup that simmers for hours. I even bought a used bike from a neighbor and ride it along the river trail in the evenings. There's something freeing about pedaling into a sunset with no destination. One night, I passed by the park bench I sat on after first reading her note. I remembered how crushed I felt, the confusion, the loss, the emptiness of being discarded by the one person I gave everything to. But this time I sat down and felt none of that. I felt full. Not of anger. Not of regret. Just full of the life I had reclaimed. I don't hate Hollis. That would be easy. Convenient. But hate is just another way of staying tethered to someone who let you down. What I feel is something quieter. Wiser. I feel like we were both broken in different ways. And I finally stopped bleeding trying to hold her together. I haven't heard from Travis since the final papers were signed. I don't know if he stayed or if he became just another character she wrote and deleted. Part of me hopes he left. That he found something honest. He deserved better too, not because he was innocent, but because he woke up. We both did. Eventually. Hollis reached out once since then. Just a short message. I hope you're doing okay. I didn't reply. Not because I wanted to hurt her, but because there was nothing left to say. I don't need to win. I don't need her to regret anything. I just need to live. And I am. More fully than I ever thought possible. So if you're reading this, if you're the version of me that's still in that kitchen, hearing I can't hug you anymore and wondering if you'll ever feel whole again, let me say this. You will. You'll feel joy again. You'll make your own coffee and smile for no reason. You'll laugh at dumb movies and eat pancakes at 2 a.m. just because you can. You'll stop asking what went wrong and start asking what's next. And one day, without even realizing it, you'll be okay. No, you'll be better. Because some endings don't leave you empty. Some endings set you free.